Same reaction. Cathy Engelbert should resign as the commissioner of the WNBA. And the reason I said that, fellas, is because when a player, and Nafisha Collier is a star in the WNBA. This is not some role player. This is her, okay? Who also happens to be a vice president.
Cathy Engelbert should resign as the commissioner of the WNBA. That's not some hot take from a random fan on the internet. That's Stephen A. Smith, the most powerful voice in sports media, going on national television and demanding the head of the league's leadership over what just went down. And if you've been following women's basketball closely, you know Stephen A. doesn't throw around words like that casually. He's not talking about a bad call or a lost playoff game. He's talking about a complete structural collapse happening in real time. What could possibly force someone like him to call for the commissioner to step down? The answer is simpler and way more devastating than anyone wants to admit. Caitlin Clark just executed the quietest power play in professional sports history. And in doing so, she exposed a truth the WNBA has been desperately trying to hide. The league doesn't just need her. They are completely, financially, existentially dependent on her. And they just realized it at the worst possible moment. If you believe the story behind the story matters more than the headlines, smash that like button right now. It tells us you're paying attention to what's actually happening, not just what the league wants you to see. Because what we're about to break down changes everything. And trust me when I say this. The tension behind the scenes right now is worse than anything you've read on social media. The players know it, the executives know it, and Caitlin Clark definitely knows it. She's been watching this unfold with the same calm detachment that made her famous in the first place. The question is whether the league can recover before she decides she's done waiting for them to figure it out. Here's what actually happened.
The commission, and I say that not in any kind of derogatory way. She was talking about Cathy Engelbert directly. She revealed private conversations, you understand, with quotes from this lady, the commissioner, about what she said that came across as dismissive, as derogatory, and unappreciated.
While everyone was busy celebrating sold-out arenas and record-breaking TV ratings, the WNBA Players Association just made a catastrophic miscalculation. They opted out of their collective bargaining agreement 2 years early, convinced they were holding an unbeatable hand. But here's the part most people missed. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. The union had been planning this move for months, watching the revenue streams swell and the television contracts multiply, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On the surface, the logic seemed bulletproof. Attendance is up over 48% compared to just 2 years ago. Viewership exploded with a record 2.3 million people tuning in for the finals. Corporate sponsors are circling like sharks, throwing money at endorsement deals that never existed before. If there was ever a moment to storm the bargaining table and demand more money, better benefits, and a bigger slice of the revenue pie, this was it. They walked into those negotiations with all the confidence of someone who thinks they're driving a tank straight through the gates. But here's what they forgot. Caitlin Clark is the engine. And engines don't negotiate. They just stop running. The union leadership spent so much time looking at the spreadsheets and the growth charts that they completely overlooked the human element. They treated this financial boom like it was some kind of natural disaster that just happened to benefit everyone equally. They assumed that because the numbers were up across the board, the leverage was distributed evenly. That assumption is about to cost them everything. Think about the psychology here. When you're sitting at a poker table and you've been losing for 20 years, finally getting a winning hand makes you want to push all your chips in immediately. That's exactly what happened. The veterans who spent years grinding for peanuts saw the money flowing and decided now was the time to cash out. But they forgot to check who was actually dealing the cards. Without Clark in the game, those record ratings disappear. Without those ratings, the TV networks start asking hard questions. Without the networks, the sponsors get nervous. It's a domino effect that starts and ends with one person. The union's leadership genuinely believed they had the league over a barrel. They thought, what are they going to do? Cancel the season? And the answer to that question is far more complicated than they realize. Because if Clark decides sitting out is better for her mental health and her brand than dealing with this chaos, the season might as well be canceled. The arenas will be empty. The broadcasts will be unwatchable. And suddenly that 50% revenue share they were demanding becomes a 50% share of absolutely nothing. That's not leverage. That's economic suicide dressed up as a power move. The timeline here is crucial because it reveals just how fast this house of cards started trembling. Just weeks ago, The narrative seemed bulletproof. Women's basketball was finally having its moment. Charter flights were becoming a reality after decades of players cramming into commercial seats like the rest of us. A historic $2.2 billion media rights deal was signed, locking in financial stability for years to come. Everyone was patting themselves on the back, convinced the mission was accomplished. Growth was inevitable. Success was guaranteed. The vibe was absolutely immaculate. Then the union, watching all this momentum build, decided it was the perfect time to light a match inside a fireworks factory. They didn't wait for the current contract to expire. They didn't test the waters cautiously to see if the momentum was sustainable. They opted out 2 years early, threw the current CBA in the trash like an expired coupon, and marched in thinking they held all the leverage. And here's the thing about leverage. It's only real if the other side can't walk away. The league can't walk away from the players entirely, but the players forgot to check if their biggest star could walk away from them. But this newfound prosperity wasn't diversified. It wasn't spread evenly across a roster of equally marketable stars. It had a name. It had a face. It had a specific logo three-point shot that sends arenas into absolute chaos. Stephen A. essentially reminded everyone of what the numbers have been screaming for months. When Caitlin Clark plays, viewership explodes. When she was injured and limited in 2025, the numbers crashed back down to pre-2024 levels almost immediately. Not a gradual decline. Not a small dip. A complete and total collapse back to where they started. The watch parties, the celebrity sightings, the mainstream media coverage, all of it follows one player. Not the uniform, not the league, her. And this is the uncomfortable truth that no one in the league office wants to acknowledge. For decades, the WNBA marketed itself as a collective. We're all in this together. The strength of the league is the sisterhood. That narrative worked when no one was watching. But now that millions of new fans have arrived, those fans made it very clear why they came. They came for Caitlin. They stay for Caitlin. And if Caitlin decides she's had enough, they leave without looking back. The data doesn't lie. When Clark plays, the Fever games break viewing records. When she's on the bench, the ratings drop by nearly half. When she's out entirely, the numbers look like they did in 2022. This isn't speculation. This is hard evidence that the league's entire economic model is balanced on the shoulders of one 23-year-old from Iowa. And the union just walked into negotiations acting like they were the ones with all the power. It's almost tragic to watch because you can see the miscalculation happening in slow motion. So, while the union was busy making demands and talking about equity and collective bargaining power, Caitlin Clark did something far more impactful. She went silent. No press tour, no dramatic statement, no cryptic social media posts hinting at her next move. She simply disappeared from the basketball conversation entirely and let everyone else panic. When a new league called Unrivaled came calling, offering equity, massive salaries, and a red carpet rolled out by veteran players who were supposed to be her allies, she declined. She simply said no. And here's what made that rejection so devastating. Unrivaled wasn't just some random startup. It was founded by two of the most respected players in the league, Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart. It had celebrity investors. It had network television deals. It was supposed to be the future of off-season women's basketball, and the biggest star in the sport looked at it and said, "No thanks, I'd rather play golf." She chose to play golf at the Annika Pro-Am instead, walking fairways with celebrities and enjoying the Florida sun. She went to a Kansas City Chiefs game with Taylor Swift, sitting in a suite and laughing while the cameras captured every moment. She focused on her Nike deal, an 8-year, $28 million contract that pays her more than her WNBA salary ever will, designing shoes and building a brand that extends far beyond the basketball court. She's been living her best life, and she's been doing it completely outside the ecosystem that thought it owned her. That one decision to decline Unrivaled spoke louder than any press conference ever could. Stephen A. didn't call it a retirement. He didn't frame it as a rebellion. He called it something far more concerning, a quiet resignation, a strategic retreat designed to send a message without ever raising her voice. And the message was crystal clear. I don't need any of this. I don't need the off-season league. I don't need the drama. I don't need the politics. I have options you can't control and opportunities you can't touch. Caitlin Clark didn't storm out. She calmly walked toward the exit, left the door open just enough to make everyone panic about whether she might actually leave for good, and then went to enjoy her off-season in complete peace. And while she's been posting pictures of golf swings and football games, the league she left behind has been melting down. The union is fighting with the commissioner. The commissioner is fighting with the players. The media is fighting over who's to blame. And Clark is just living her life, letting the chaos consume everyone else while she waits to see if anyone figures out how to fix the mess they created. This is the kind of power that doesn't need to be exercised to be felt. She doesn't have to say a word. Her silence is louder than any rant could ever be. Every time a reporter asks about the CBA negotiations and she deflects, it sends another shockwave through the league offices. Every time she shows up at an event that has nothing to do with basketball, it reminds everyone that basketball is just one part of her life, not the center of it. That's the scariest thing for any league to face. A star who doesn't need them. Meanwhile, the league that just opted out of its financial security blanket is now staring at the very real possibility that their entire revenue model could vanish. And the tension didn't stop with the union. It went straight to the top. The relationship between the players and the commissioner's office has deteriorated so badly that private conversations are now being leaked to the media as weapons. Stephen A. mentioned private conversations that were revealed about Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and these weren't just casual complaints. WNBA Vice President Nafisa Collier went public with something alarming. She claimed that Engelbert told her directly that Caitlin Clark should be grateful for her off-court earnings because, without the platform of the WNBA, she wouldn't have them. Think about the arrogance required to say something like that to a player who has single-handedly transformed your league's financial future. Think about that. The commissioner allegedly told one of the league's biggest stars that the player driving the economic bus should be grateful, while making less than $80,000 from her actual salary. Clark's WNBA paycheck is a rounding error compared to what she makes from endorsements. And yet the commissioner of the league wants her to feel thankful for the opportunity to play for poverty wages while generating millions in revenue. When a vice president of the Players Association is publicly exposing the commissioner's private comments as dismissive, derogatory, and unappreciative, that's not just drama. That's a structural collapse happening in real time. Sources later told Sports Business Journal that Engelbert's future with the league is uncertain after these negotiations, precisely because she's viewed as someone who hasn't connected and isn't a relationship builder with the players. And here's the thing about being a commissioner in a players' league. If the players don't trust you, you can't function. You can't negotiate. You can't mediate. You can't lead. Engelbert has found herself in the worst possible position, caught between owners who want to maximize profits and players who want to maximize their share, with no credibility left on either side. The irony is almost painful. Engelbert was brought in to professionalize the league, to bring corporate structure to what had been a struggling operation. And by every financial metric, she succeeded. Revenue is up. TV deals are signed. Expansion is happening. But she forgot the most important part of the job. She forgot that professional sports isn't just a business. It's a relationship business. And when you lose the trust of the players, all the financial success in the world won't save you. Now we have a situation where the commissioner can't talk to the players without having her words leaked to the press. The players can't negotiate without wondering if the league is trying to lowball them based on outdated assumptions. And the biggest star in the sport is sitting at home watching this circus unfold, probably wondering why she would ever subject herself to this level of dysfunction voluntarily. And here's where the ripple effects get even more fascinating. Unrivaled, the league Clark turned down, is now bleeding out in front of everyone. They expanded to 8 teams, increased arena capacity, moved to a bigger venue in Miami, and then watched their viewership drop 44% on opening night compared to last year. That's not a small dip. That's a catastrophic collapse that should terrify everyone invested in women's basketball as a product. Analysts are pointing directly at the Caitlin Clark truth. Unrivaled ran a marketing campaign teasing the number 22, Clark's number, getting fans hyped that she might show up. They never explicitly promised she would play, but they didn't have to. The implication was clear. And when she didn't show, the credibility shattered. Fans who had bought tickets expecting to see the biggest star in the sport found themselves watching a game that felt fundamentally lesser. And they responded by simply not watching again. Now, with the WNBA's new CBA potentially pushing max contracts over $1 million, Unrivaled's financial edge is gone. They can't compete with the league she actually plays in for her time, and they can't draw ratings without her face on the screen. The entire business model was built on the assumption that the stars would come and the fans would follow. But the fans only follow one star, and that star made it very clear she has no interest in being part of their experiment. This proves a brutal point that the industry has been trying to ignore. Fans weren't tuning in for the concept of women's basketball. They weren't tuning in for the idea of supporting female athletes. They weren't tuning in because they believed in the mission. They were tuning in for her, for one player, for one generational talent who makes the game look different than anyone else. And that reality is terrifying for everyone trying to build a business around this moment. The unrivaled situation is a warning shot for the WNBA. If a league founded and run by current players, with equity stakes and ownership opportunities, can't attract the biggest star, what makes the WNBA think they have a better offer? The answer is they don't. They have the same problem Unrivaled has. They need Clark more than she needs them. And she just demonstrated that she's perfectly willing to let entire leagues fail rather than participate in something she doesn't believe in. Let's connect the dots here, because this goes way deeper than one player declining one league invitation. The union assumed this newfound wealth was permanent. They thought corporate sponsors had fallen in love with women's basketball as a concept. They believed that the growth was structural, that the league had finally turned a corner and would never go back. The data tells a completely different story. Caitlin Clark's WNBA salary makes up roughly 1% of her annual income. The rest comes from endorsers who want her, not just the league. State Farm wants her. Gatorade wants her. Nike wants her. These companies aren't signing checks because they love the WNBA. They're signing checks because they love the data that shows Clark moves product. When she wears something, it sells out. When she appears in a commercial, searches spike. When she tweets about a brand, engagement explodes. That's not league value. That's individual value. Yet, she is the reason the league generated $200 million in revenue last season. That's the paradox that no one in the league office wants to acknowledge. The revenue is flowing because of her, but she's seeing almost none of it. In the NBA, players get about 50% of league revenues. In the WNBA, players currently get less than 10%. The union is demanding a bump to 30%, which still seems reasonable compared to every other major sports league, but the league is holding firm below 15%. So the union created instability at the exact moment when stability was the most valuable asset they had. They assumed they were driving a tank. What they actually did was remove the engine from the vehicle and then act surprised when it stopped moving. And now they're trying to negotiate with the person who owns the only engine that works. And she's not even at the table. She's playing golf. The numbers don't lie. When you look at the league's revenue projections for the next TV deal, every single assumption is based on continued growth in viewership. That growth is based on Clark. If she walks away, those projections collapse. The networks start asking for renegotiations. The sponsors start looking for outs in their contracts. And suddenly the 10% the players were getting becomes 10% of a much smaller number. No one wins in that scenario except the lawyers. There is also a global dimension almost no one is discussing. If the WNBA locks out its players in 2026, or if the environment becomes too toxic, or if the negotiations drag on and damage her brand, Caitlin Clark has options that didn't exist for players before her. And those options change everything about the power dynamic. She isn't just an American celebrity anymore. She's a global brand. European clubs would pay astronomical sums for short-term deals because they understand what she represents. A single game in London with Caitlin Clark could sell more tickets than an entire season of local league play. A tour of Asia featuring her would pack arenas from Tokyo to Seoul to Shanghai. A month-long exhibition schedule could generate more revenue than a full WNBA season. A world tour featuring her would sell out London, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney, Madrid, Rome. Every major basketball market on the planet would line up to host her. And the money they would offer would make WNBA salaries look like pocket change. We're talking about millions of dollars for a handful of appearances. Stephen A. implied this gives her an escape route the league cannot control, and he's absolutely right. That possibility should terrify everyone who cares about the league's long-term survival. Because once fans realize this alternative exists, once they see Clark playing in Paris or London and thriving, the WNBA's negotiating position collapses entirely. The league becomes just another option, not the only option. And when you're competing with the entire world for a player's time, you better have a compelling offer. Right now, the WNBA's offer is less money, more drama, and a commissioner who thinks you should be grateful. The global basketball market has been waiting for a female player with this kind of international appeal. Male stars have been doing global tours for decades, making millions while building their brands. There's no reason Clark couldn't do the same thing. And if the WNBA makes it hard for her to stay, if they create an environment where playing in the league feels like a burden rather than an opportunity, she has every incentive to take her talents elsewhere. At the core of all this chaos is one brutal, simple realization. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the WNBA, but the WNBA desperately needs Caitlin Clark. Everything else is noise. Every argument about revenue sharing, every debate about the commissioner's future, every discussion about the union's strategy, it all comes back to that one uncomfortable truth. Stephen A. didn't confirm a formal resignation, but he confirmed something far more unsettling. The league is one bad decision away from watching its biggest star decide she's happier, richer, and more influential outside the system than inside it. And once that decision is made, it can't be unmade. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't convince someone to come back after they've seen what life looks like on the other side. When the union opted out of that agreement, they thought they were making a power move. What they actually did was hand Caitlin Clark a loaded weapon and dare her to use it. Her response wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was calculated and devastating. She simply demonstrated that she can walk away without hesitation. And that fact alone should terrify every boardroom involved. The league's initial crash out was loud and emotional. The union's demands were aggressive and public. The commissioner's comments were dismissive and damaging. But her response was quiet, strategic, and utterly destructive. History tends to remember the quiet moves that change everything. And right now, Caitlin Clark is writing that history, one strategic silence at a time. If you want to stay ahead of this story as it develops, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. This situation is far from over, and what happens next could fundamentally reshape professional sports. Do you think Caitlin is making the right move by staying silent, or should she be more vocal about the disrespect? Drop your take in the comments below. We read them, and we want to know where you stand. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.